eyes were drawn to the house's broken shutters and the mossy remnants of its forgotten past. Human-sized dolls. Their lifeless eyes bore into her, their mocking laughter echoing in the hollows of the house. In the center of the disturbing gallery,
welcome to Sleep Time Horror. Enjoy our spine-chilling stories as you sleep, commute, or relax. If you're new, hit subscribe and share with friends and family. Let us know in the comments how we can improve. Our stories are best experienced with headphones on. Now, let's dive into today's tale.
Warning: the following stories contain elements of horror that explore themes of the supernatural, possession, psychological terror, and gruesome transformations. They are intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for those sensitive to graphic imagery or themes of death, entrapment, and eternal damnation. Listener discretion is advised. The Dollmaker's Revenge, a horror story that will haunt you. Prologue: The Arrival. June 10th, 1910. The day was bitter and gray, a fitting backdrop for a town with such an ominous reputation. Emily, shuddering as she stepped off the train, held her anniversary gift close, a journal with a leather exterior and ornate gold lettering on the front cover that read, "Truth always prevails." She intended to tell her truth within its pages, a chronicle of her new life in Woodsworth, an aging, distant town in New York, seldom visited by tourists. Emily, a pragmatic woman in her mid-20s, had recently separated from her husband, David, whose infidelity fueled her decision to start over in a new town. Strangers often considered her a compelling dichotomy of resilient and melancholic, and her calm demeanor seemed at odds with her forlorn expression as she arrived. Alongside her meager belongings, which included a satchel of her most precious childhood books, a box containing her precious mementos, and the aged journal, she hoisted her suitcases onto the small, quiet platform. The narrow, desolate stretch of land stretched out around the train station like a silent, unwanted protest. Evergreens loomed ominously on each side, as if they, too, were mourning the departure of the train. Woodsworth had been a successful lumber town, once bustling with activity, but as wood became scarce, the dwellers of the once proud town were left with nothing but echoes of its former glory. Emily was greeted by her cousin, Hunter, who she hadn't seen since his last visit to their childhood home a decade before. Though they were of the same blood, their personalities were polar opposites. Hunter was a free spirit, an eternal optimist, and Emily couldn't begrudge him the magnetic spark he seemed to carry about him. Conversely, she was reclusive, choosing isolation over forced friendship. As the cousins hugged, Emily couldn't help but detect an undercurrent of anticipation emanating from Hunter, mixed with a hint of unease. Unbeknownst to Emily, the town held many secrets, and his eager embrace was a veiled attempt to quell the brewing tension in his soul. He would come to regret that oversight. Woodsworth seemed to be a dying entity, and the very atmosphere of the place felt spectral, as if the lingering ghosts of its former glory were quietly grieving beneath the shadows of contemporary reality. As they drove away from the station and navigated the town's innumerable winding streets, Emily found herself on the eve of bearing witness to the darkest of human depravity. She would come to learn that in Woodsworth the dead were more tangible than the living. Chapter 1. The Abandoned House. As they approached the old ramshackle house that would serve as Emily's new abode, she could feel her skin prickling with unease. Her eyes were drawn to the house's broken shutters and the mossy remnants of its forgotten past. In the desolate quiet that surrounded them, the house exuded a discordant melody of sorrow and despair. Hunter's attempts at levity fell flat as his smile crumbled beneath the insurmountable weight of reality. He explained how the house had been abandoned for decades and why. His words carried an eerie resonance that only amplified Emily's dread. The house had once belonged to the town's most infamous resident, Thomas Connolly, the notorious Dollmaker. He'd been renowned for his uncanny talent in crafting lifelike dolls. But as the town aged, so too did Connolly's infamy. Local rumors whispered of children disappearing, only to be found in brutal, heinous tableaus. Whispers held that Connolly's dolls were cursed, their grotesque features speaking in unheard languages to drive their owners mad. The investigation of Connolly's crimes revealed an obsessive fascination with the occult, and strange objects were found hidden within the confines of his dilapidated home. Artifacts such as polished human teeth, ceremonial blades, and disparate journal fragments littered the ground throughout the house. As Emily examined these macabre relics, she felt an ominous cloud looming overhead, threatening to leave her lost and forgotten, just as the house had been. Chapter 2. The dream. The night was heavy, the cold seeping into Emily's bones as she lay restless in her new alien bed. The silence was oppressive, and the weight of her isolation closed in like a vice. As she searched the darkness for a comfort, she found none. Instead, her lingering nightmares embraced her in a spectral caress, filling the emptiness with a fabricated reality. Emily stood in the abandoned house, encircled by a throng of laughing, human-sized dolls. Their lifeless eyes bore into her, their mocking laughter echoing in the hollows of the house. In the center of the disturbing gallery stood Thomas Connolly, his piercing gaze locking with Emily's, trapping her within the macabre tableau. As Emily darted through the disorienting maze of the house, the laughter grew louder, gaining a vindictive cruelty that almost seemed to slither through her consciousness. She eventually found herself in the dimly lit basement, the remnants of the dollmaker's workshop laid out before her. An unnerving altar stood at the heart of the workshop, strewn with the paraphernalia of unholy rituals. Connolly approached her, arms outstretched as if to embrace her, his visage twisted into a grotesque parody of humanity. A chilling whisper broke through the cacophony of laughter, echoing in Emily's mind. "Join us," the voice demanded, the assembled dolls echoing in a sinister unison. "Join the dance of the damned." Emily woke with a start, sweat dripping from her brow, the remnants of the dream clinging to the edges of her consciousness. Chapter 3. The warning. Hunter accompanied Emily on one of her earliest excursions into town, and the pair was accosted by an elderly woman they'd later come to know as Isabel. She stood in front of them, a look of panicked determination etched upon her weathered features. "Please," she begged, clawing at the air around her, "don't stay in that house. There's too much darkness there, more than you know." Lucy was one of the souls who fell to the Dollmaker's games, dragged back into the dark corners of Woodsworth. I can see her peering from between the wallpaper, trying to warn us of the danger that still lurks within those walls. Unable to deny the woman's plea, Emily set out to learn more about the town and the house's dark history. In studying the relics left behind by Thomas Connolly, she stumbled upon an ancient, faded journal, the final testament of Lucy, the lost soul that haunted the halls of the abandoned house. Their voices were forever entwined, and Emily transcribed their shared truths in her own journal. "We've all danced with the darker side of the human spirit," Lucy confessed, "and perhaps one day I will be freed from this purgatory of torment. But until then, I must warn others of the price paid for loving the darkness." Chapter 4. The Dollmaker's Revenge. As Emily delved deeper into the town's history, she became obsessed with uncovering the truth behind Thomas Connolly and his gruesome legacy. Each revelation seemed to unlock further horrors, weaving together a narrative of human cruelty and the power of cursed objects. Emily's journey led her to the final remnants of Connolly's life, his last unfinished doll. The doll embodied a chilling contradiction of beauty and repulsion, its lifelike features weeping tears that appeared to seep into Emily's very soul. Though she scoffed at the supernatural, she found herself drawn to the doll in a macabre dance, a haunting echo of the Dollmaker's previous victims. As she cradled the doll, the malevolent voices of Woodsworth's tormented children whispered in her ear, their collective suffering converging into a singular plea for the end of the Dollmaker's reign of terror. Their voices swelled, drowning out the world around them, as Emilia's vision grew blurry, her heart pounding like an ominous drum in her chest. A searing pain radiated from the small of her back, her spine contorting into a grotesque serpentine twine. She collapsed to the ground, the sound of splintering wood echoing through the deserted house. The pain dissipated, and Emily's eyes slowly regained their focus, revealing a horrifying vision. Her body had fused with the doll, the two now united in a macabre dance that would endure until the very last echo of Woodsworth's tormented souls had been silenced. Hunter's voice echoed through the void, penetrating the prison of Emily's altered consciousness. "The Dollmaker's curse lives on, drawing in innocent victims to serve its depraved will," he cried, as he harnessed the power of love and remembrance to save Emily from the clutches of darkness. She found herself embroiled in a battle against forces far beyond her understanding. In the final moments, the heart-rending embrace of an ancient, forgotten love filled the room, its spectral force a catalyst for Emily's metamorphosis. She emerged from the darkness, their love binding the Dollmaker's eternal nightmare into a perpetual cycle of memory and redemption. As the house groaned and shuddered, announcing its surrender to the events that had transpired within its walls, Emily found herself forever altered, her connection to the tormented souls of Woodsworth heralding a new era of hope and renewal in the forgotten town. Epilogue. The long goodbye. Emily's departure from Woodsworth marked a duality of bitter separation and rejuvenating growth. Together, she and Hunter had unearthed the truth of Thomas Connolly's reign and battled the darkness that had festered for decades, setting the town's restless spirits free in the process. The journey had left an indelible mark on Emily's soul, a shadow of the incomprehensible darkness that had borne witness to their struggle. Her newfound empathy for the tormented souls of the town drove her to chronicle their stories in her journal. Truth always prevails, ensuring that their voices would never be silenced. As she stood on the train platform once more, Emily reflected on the people she'd left behind. In her heart, she knew that the desolate town would always be a part of her, a living testament to the power of love and the unyielding spirit of humanity. And as the train pulled away from the platform, Emily couldn't help but feel the cold embrace of the forgotten town linger on her skin, leaving an indelible scar upon her soul, a whispered reminder of the darkness that had almost claimed her and the resilience that saved her from the Dollmaker's revenge.
If you're new, hit subscribe and share with friends and family. Let us know in the comments how we can improve.